minority party, and it's very possible that a ploy like the New Hampshire primary will be what will propel us into national publicity and national fame. So I am dead set against this, and I urge all of you to think about it 3 times.
Anyone care to speak in favor of the motion? Mr. Richmond.
Sheldon Richmond, Delaware. In speaking for this motion, I echo my comments on when we changed Article 3, Section A, for the same reason. It is vital that we create in the minds of the public that there is a distinct, separate, libertarian movement, anti-statist, and anything which muddies that up must be opposed. Of course, libertarians are free, but this is a private organization.
Mr. Chairman?
Right. Let me make one comment here procedurally again. For purposes of keeping the matter brief, let's direct our comments to the substance of the motion, to those points which are relevant, and please do not repeat arguments that have been made before.
Mr. Chairman?
Let's see, I think you were about next.
Yeah, one problem.
Please, state your name.
Fritz Sands from California. One problem I have with this is that it very well might rule out the possibility of any of the members of the Libertarian Party running under a dual candidacy, such as happens sometimes in New York and in other states. Because if he becomes a candidate of any other political party as well as the Libertarian Party, there could be problems.
Let me give you some information. Let's keep it straight as what the effect of this is. The effect of this is to limit National Committee members only. Its purpose was to put a limitation on those people who have undertaken the responsibility to assume a position of leadership, the highest positions of leadership in the Libertarian Party, that is, membership in the National Party. It does not go beyond those people. It speaks directly to those people. So if your comments are with regard to its effects on other people, then they are irrelevant. Sir, I don't think I've talked with you before. Go ahead.
In speaking, Harry Robinson.
Please, your name, right.
In speaking in favor of adoption of the section, I would move to delete the words "or related activities," believing that the word "elections" is sufficient for the meaning of the change.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, second motion. There's a second.
Second. It's second.
I know that. Would the members of the committee object to taking that as a friendly amendment? Any of you? If not, we will.
I object.
Okay, it's objected. It'll have to be formal.
Again, I'm going to see what I can do about educating us all as we go along here so we don't run into the same things. A person who makes a motion can accept a friendly amendment if the seconder will also do the same thing without getting into a big debate about it. When it is the committee report, the entire committee has to accept that friendly amendment without objection, in this case that did not occur. So the motion that we have on the floor at the present time is an amendment to the committee's proposal, which is to delete the words "or related activities" from subsection B, so that subsection B would then read, "shall not participate in elections as the candidate of any political party except the party or an affiliate party." That matter is now open for debate. Please speak directly to the amendment. Anybody? Yes, sir.
Tim McDermott, Pennsylvania. In many states, getting on the ballot is much easier if you go for a party's nomination, an established party's nomination. And I think that this could be legitimately done without involving yourself with the party. It's possible to come in and take their nomination away from them. So I would move that I would defeat this amendment and instead move that we strike the
You're out of
word.
order.
Okay,
I don't think your comments are directed to the proposed amendment.
I would urge the defeat then of this amendment.
Mr. Maxfield, is it?
Yes. Bill Maxfield, California. Would the maker of the amendment accept a friendly amendment to delete participate in elections also, so that it would read, "shall not be a candidate of any political party except the party or an affiliate party"? No. I'd like to move to amend the amendment to delete those words so it would read, B.
Mr. Maxfield, you're out of order.
Point of order? Why?
You're out of order because that's a tertiary amendment. Don't you love labels like that?
Okay.
We'll have to take up the amendment to the amendment which is on the floor at the present time. If you want to have if there's a different proposal, then you will have to defeat this one and go on to the next item. Excuse me just a minute. How are we on time?
Therefore, there can be only one amendment.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
We have 1 minute of debate remaining on this entire plank.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
point of order. I believe the main motion on the floor is a motion to amend something previously adopted.
No, the motion on the... Oh, excuse me, you're right.
Therefore, you may make amendment to that main motion and an amendment to the main motion.
No, I don't think that's right.
Should be.
What we have on the floor from the top down is the committee's proposal for an amendment. And then the next item on the floor, which is what is in front of us right now, is an amendment to the committee's proposed amendment.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to extend debate on this plank.
Excuse me, you're out of order. I recognize the man in the blue shirt.
Mr. Magrum from Nevada. I speak in favor of the amendment to the strike the words or related activities. Related activities is just too broad and vague as to this might include a situation where a space cadet may find themselves impelled to affiliate with a campaign of some other party candidacy on some issue that advances libertarianism, but it might not. Let's say it's a Christian libertarian, and that's not so popular, let's say at the time with National Committee, and this has got a little, this vagueness in here is a little, gives too much power.
I'm going to have to cut you off because our time is up.
Mr. Chairman?
The time, you're all out of order.
Point of order?
Well, maybe not
Mr.
you.
Berglund?
The time is up.
Mr. Berglund?
The time is up. Anybody speaking from the microphone is out of order.
Not true.
That is
Would
true.
you like me to recite you the parliamentary situations in which
No, I wouldn't. I would like you to relinquish the microphone and allow us to proceed with this matter. The time frame for our consideration of the
I move to suspend the rules to extend debate on this.
that is in order.
That's right. So the
Now, we also have an additional, you're going to have to move to suspend the rules to continue this matter into the lunch break because we're at that point as well.
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move an appeal, if you will recognize me to do that.
I think we can defer this kind of battle if we just take the recess and take this matter up at our return. Win a few, lose a few. I got two announcements to make. Will members of the National Committee who are here in the room please come up to the bench right now to consider the Missouri matter. And also, I've been asked to repeat the announcement that Ed Clark will make a major campaign statement at 12:30 in the Sacramento room, which is right next door. Concur. I'm waiting on our parliamentarian who had some business he had to take care of, and so I apologize on his behalf for the delay. We can tell a few jokes. opening the second session of the 1979 Libertarian Party National Convention over the objection of our youngest delegate. But we're going to go ahead anyway. As called for by our Constitution rules, the first item of business on the floor is the Credentials Committee report. The purpose of that is to update the information on the number of delegates. So we will proceed with the Credentials Committee's report update.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
Kathy Courageous, Arizona. On the Credentials Committee report, would it be possible this morning, she went through a beautiful, very lengthy presentation. In the essence of time, can you go through just the number of seated?
Yes, that was just the first
Okay.
time round.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
The update is we now have delegations accredited from Missouri. There are 5 delegates accredited. So far, none of them have registered. I think one of them is in the process right now. This was based on the National Committee's decision to accept documentation of affiliation in lieu of signed petitions. There are 3 people, I believe, here from Missouri who can vouch for that. And we also have a delegation from New Mexico. We have accredited 4 delegates from New Mexico. The total number of delegates and alternates eligible to vote in this session as of this time is 547. And that gives us a quorum of 219. And that concludes my report for the beginning of this session.
Mr. Chairman.
Any comments on the report of the Credentials Committee? Mr. Hilbert.
Mr. Chairman, may I please request an explanation of the transition on the case of Missouri?
On credentials?
Yes.
On credentials,
Mr. Olson,
please.
are you offering to make that explanation?
No, I have a question, point of information. There is some question as to the proper quorum that you announced. Would you check your totals?
I couldn't understand you.
Would you check your total division? I believe a quorum is 1/2 of the delegates authorized.
No, it is 40%.
Okay.
Mr. Hilbert, now your question was?
If we could have a brief recital from the Credentials Chairman as to the changes which occurred in the status of Missouri.
Certainly. Would you go ahead with that?
The National Committee held a meeting during the lunch recess. At that meeting, there was presented a piece of paper signed by the names of 3 Missouri people who were members of the past party and who signed the new affiliation petition, testifying that that the following 10 people had signed and listing the names of them. And the National Committee decided to accept that documentation in lieu of one that apparently has been lost in the mail, or at least has not been received here now. And I have recorded in the minutes that myself and yourself, Mr. Hilbert, voted against the motion. They directed the Credentials Committee to seat the delegates.
Mr. Hilbert?
I would be pleased to accept parliamentary advice on the proper device with which to challenge the Credentials report.
I'm sorry, that's fine.
He's got
right, Mr. Hilberg, I think I may have an answer to your question. There is no provision for challenging the credentials report. Insofar as the underlying decision of the National Committee to affiliate the party based upon the Missouri State Party, based upon the documentation provided, that would require an amendment to the Constitution, those provisions relating to chartering affiliate parties or affiliating state parties, that in order to be able to introduce that challenge.
I am prepared to offer such an amendment which would then legitimate what the National Committee has done by usurpation.
The vote total required for such an amendment would be 2/3, amendment to the Constitution. And the characterization of the facts is something that should be left out of your comments.
I retract them.
Okay. Do you have a proposal? Do you
Yes,
have,
sir.
and do you have it in writing?
I would propose that Bylaw 1, Section 1, not a constitutional amendment, but per your advice, a bylaw amendment, be modified as following: to add the single sentence, this is Bylaw 1, Section 1, the National Committee may accept other evidence of a state organization's desire to affiliate.
Will you bring that wording up here?
Do you have it written, John?
I do.
Would you bring it up, please? All right. You've had to move to suspend the rules to take this under consideration at that time, or at this time, because we are still in the middle of the committee's report. That being the case, I will take your suggestion as a motion to suspend the rules to consider the proposed amendment. And is there a second to that motion? All right. Is that a debatable? Is there any comment or discussion on whether or not we should suspend the rules for this particular purpose? If not, we'll just move directly to a vote on it. Hearing no objection, let's move to a vote. All in favor of suspending the rules for the purpose of considering Mr. Hilberg's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was not, I will rule that the voice vote was not 2/3. And that's, unfortunately, Mr. Hilberg terminates discussion and motion.
Mr. Chairman, may I respectfully request a standing vote?
Yes, you may. Roll call vote on the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I did not request a roll call. I asked for a standing vote.
Oh, a standing vote. All right. This is a vote on the motion to suspend the rules to consider the motion that Mr. Hilberg previously related to us. And so we'll start off with a simple estimation. All those in favor of suspending the rules, stand, please. Yes. Please let me remind you that the only persons entitled to vote are delegates and qualified alternates. If you have more people at your location at the present time than your state qualified delegation, then please limit your votes to the total number. Okay. All right, all those opposed? I will still rule that that is not 2/3. Looked about 50-50 to me. Anything further on the
Point of information.
Where are you?
Where do we get copies of the Constitution and Bylaws report?
They've all been handed out. Are there some extras? I think at the back of the room by the water casket there are some more. Yeah, there were a total of 800 printed, so there should be enough to go around. All right, we will resume consideration of the committee report. We had arrived at the end of the 10-minute time limit, and we had before us an amendment and yes, we have the committee's proposed amendment of Article 5, which, as amended, would read in its entirety, a national committee member, A, shall be a member of the party, and B, shall not participate in elections or related activities as the candidate of any political party except the party or an affiliate party. We then had a motion to amend the amendment by deleting the words from subsection B, deleting the following words, or related activities, so that the section would then read, shall not participate in elections as the candidate of any political party except the party or an affiliate party. And if you will recall, the argument was primarily that there was substantial ambiguity in the terms or related activities. We are at the conclusion of our 10-minute time limit on this matter, and unless there are
Mr. Chairman,
comments to
I had a motion to suspend the rules.
Where are you?
I'm over here on your left.
Okay.
Suspend the rules that this discussion should continue for a little while longer.
Second.
On this matter, the matter of the
You'll have to
amendment.
state a time. How about 3 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Second.
Friendly amendment? All right. There's been a motion to suspend the rules for 5 minutes to continue consideration of this particular proposed amendment. There was a second. This will take a 2/3 vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The nays are louder. Yeah. Now the nays is gone. I propose that I accept that as a 2/3 vote, and to avoid the problems of a division, which will take 5 minutes or more.
Could we have a stand-up vote on that instead, Dave? I'll accept your ruling, but...
All right, that'll be faster. A stand-up vote without counting the standees. We're all in favor of the motion to suspend the rules for purpose of adding 5 minutes of debate on the subject before the floor. Stand up, please. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Okay. Sit down, and all of those opposed, please stand up. Yeah. I'm going to rule that that's 2/3. The rules have been suspended for the motion for the purpose of adding 5 minutes, which will begin immediately, to the debate. Mr. Maxfield.
I'd like a ruling by the parliamentarian on whether an amendment to this amendment is in order.
Mr. Maxfield, I think that my understanding of what the people involved here are trying to accomplish with the proposed amendment is that can be taken as a separate amendment. What I would propose is that rather than getting into a parliamentary or a discussion about that particular parliamentary point, that we can move to a vote on or further debate on whether or not we should delete simply the words or related activities, and then any other amendments that people may want to propose after that's done can be taken up at that time. and thereby avoid a parliamentary problem.
I'd like to call the question.
I'd like
Second.
I'd like to say something
Excuse
against
me, you're
this
out of
amendment.
order. The question's been called and seconded. That is not debatable. All in favor of suspending debate on the amendment to the amendment, which is only the deletion of the words "or related activities." All have that? Okay. All in favor of suspending debate, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Debate is hereby suspended. All right. To a vote on a motion before the floor, which is to delete the words "or related activities" from subsection B of Article 5. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. That is deleted. Now, are there any other matters relating to this particular provision? Mr. Maxfield.
Yes, I'd like to make one amendment to delete the words participate in elections, so that B would read, shall not be a candidate of any political party except the party or affiliated party.
Well, you also need a small revision of that article. Don't you change it from a B to an A?
Sure.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion? All right. Now, so that we understand, the motion...
Point of order.
Yes.
Do we have, I don't believe we can extend debate to cover this amendment.
Yes,
we only have authorization to extend the debate for the 5 minutes to cover the last amendment, not this one.
No, that's not true. This is on this item of the committee's report. The 5 minutes was the extension for that purpose. The subsection B would then be, in accordance with Mr. Maxfield's amendment, would read, shall not be the candidate of any political party except the party or an affiliate party. Does everybody understand that? Yeah. Yeah. No. Shall, yeah, so it strikes the words participate in elections, or, yes. Okay. And the word "the" before candidate would be changed to B, B-A. Mm-hmm. All right. There was a second. Any discussion on this?
Point of information.
Where are you? Yes.
I'm wondering how people are interpreting this to mean. There's some confusion in my mind. I'm sorry, Vivian Bowers from Oregon. There's some confusion in my mind whether this means, as it's amended, to be a candidate. Would that include running, for example, in New Hampshire in the Democratic primary? Obviously, a Libertarian would not be the Democratic presidential nominee at that point, and hence not a Democratic candidate. Would that be included in this wording or excluded? I'd like to hear some comment about that.
I'll go ahead. The answer to your question is that if the committee's report is adopted with the amendment that Mr. Maxfield has proposed, a national committee member, no other person, only national committee members, would be precluded from being the candidate of any political party except the party or an affiliate party, which would mean no member of the national committee, any of the 4 national officers or the members at large or the regional representatives would have to abide by that limitation as part of their obligations as national committee members.
Mr. Chairman,
it would not apply to any other person in the party.
Mr. Chairman, I understand that. My question really is, are you saying you're defining candidate of a political party is this a candidate after the primary process, or is this a candidate in the primary process?
My interpretation of the language as it would remain at that point is that in any election, primary or general, local, state, or federal, a member of the National Committee of the Libertarian Party would be precluded from being a candidate wearing any party label other than the Libertarian Party. It would not preclude him from being an independent or in any nonpartisan election, only to be the candidate of another political party. Mr. Kenny?
Mr. Chairman, I I think that this is a good amendment. I think it takes care of the only ambiguity I was able to find. It leaves us with a vastly improved amendment as a whole to our existing Constitution, and I move the question.
That was a talk in favor. Anybody want to talk against it?
Yes.
Who moved the question? No, he can't move the question. You cannot call a question at the conclusion of your argument.
Point of order.
Mr. Chairman, I understand we are, I'm sorry, Murray Feldstein, Flagstaff, Arizona. I don't understand why we're discriminating against national committeemen on this particular thing. Why are we treating a national committee person different than a state chair or a county chair or any other libertarian?
I think I can explain that to you.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
The reason I will make that explanation, and our time is up. The policy represented by this proposed change is that those people who undertake the responsibility and the high visibility position of being members of the National Governing Board of the Libertarian Party should represent or should reflect sufficient commitment to the party to stay within the party and not participate as activists in other political parties. That's the policy reflected by the rule. You can either agree or disagree with that policy, but that's what it's there for. In addition, in response to the latter part of your question, Mr. Feldstein, we do not. We have our entire Constitution is fraught with rules limiting the power of the national party organization to tell state parties what they can do. And our time is up.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman?
So we will have to move to a vote at this point.
Point of order.
Who's calling for a point of order?
I am, right in front of you.
Go ahead.
Actually, I maybe needed some clarification. It seemed to me that the chairman's most recent remarks were in the form of debate after the time limit, and other than procedural matters, is it not the fact that the chairman should not discuss the matter after the time limit either?
My response to your question is Mr. Feldstein asked the question, why is it that this proposal is cast in this form, placing the limitations on the National Committee members as opposed to other people such as state parties? The explanation was I did not place it as an argument. I'm saying the policy reflected by this is as I expressed it. You either agree or disagree with that policy.
Information,
Mr. Chairman? And unless, is there a point of order, which I will recognize, otherwise everybody else is out of order.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order. Don Stott. Wouldn't it be the Constitution, Bylaws, and Rules Committee's job to answer that question rather than the chairman's job to answer that question? I concur with the gentleman in the rear.
No, never mind. We're just going to vote. If there are, the time is up. The answer to your question is no.
Point of information,
and we will
Chairman?
go to a vote on this matter. The only motion that would be in order would be a motion to suspend the rules to extend debate. If there is such a motion, we will consider it.
I so move. Susan Poulin from Massachusetts.
Is there a second? Okay. It's for how long?
5 minutes.
Okay. A motion to suspend the rules to extend debate on this motion for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
No, excuse me, not now.
I believe we're in the middle of voting on a motion, the motion to close debate.
The motion is in order to extend or to suspend the rules to extend the time for debate an additional 5 minutes on this matter. It has been seconded. We'll move to a vote.
Second it.
It has been seconded. All in favor of suspending the rules to extend debate on this item of the Platform Committee's report, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That makes it easy. All right. We will now vote on the amendment. And the repetition of the amendment is that subsection B of Article 5 will have deleted from it the words not participate in elections, so that it will, and further modified so that it will read in its final form, shall not be the candidate of any political party except the party or an affiliate party. If there are no further questions, we'll move to a vote on that. All in favor of that amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Passes. We'll now move to a vote on the main motion, which is the adoption of this proposed plank, which in its entirety will read, a national committee member, A, shall be a member of the party, and B, shall not be the candidate of any political party except the party or an affiliate party. Information?
I move the previous question.
You don't have to. That's where we are. But thanks anyway. All in favor of the amendment as read, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it.
Okay, the next proposal is where we start having fun. We have a minority report. Okay, first I'll read the majority report, and I guess I can read the minority report as well and explain the effects of the two. Then I'll give the majority view, and a spokesman for the minority can give the minority view as to why we differed. Okay, the majority report on this proposal is Article 5, Section 1A. The current wording, I'll read first, says this refers to the who is on the National Committee of the party. Section A there says the 4 elected officers of the party and the immediate past chair. Nobody's arguing about the 4 elected officers. The question is on the immediate past chair. The majority report is to delete the words and the immediate past chair and insert a new B and re-letter the subsequent sections. The new B would read, the immediate past chair for the 2-year period following the election of a new chair. The minority report is towards the bottom of the first page of the minority reports. It's about page 7 of your proposals there. I did not get the names on this list of who the minority proposers were. Jim, did you have that? Okay, Mr. Clarkson and Leslie Key are on that, and Leslie Key will speak for the minority. Their proposal is, instead of putting in a new section there as the majority report, simply substitute for the current word immediate the words most recent. Now let me give the effects of this first, as the committee saw them. It was the thinking of the committee that the current wording, immediate past chair, is unclear, that it needed to be cleared up one way or the other, and then the committee differed on which way to clear it up. The thinking of unclear goes like this. We have an example of it right now. If an incumbent chair is re-elected, is the chair who served the term before the incumbent chair still on the next time as the past chair? Let us say that John Smith is chair. Then Sally Dokes is elected chair. Then the next convention, Sally Dokes is re-elected. After that next convention, is John Smith still on his past chair, even though 2 years have intervened? Do you understand the problem we're trying to address here before we go into how we addressed it? Yes. Okay. The thing is, the current wording we felt is unclear as to which way that is currently. This is, it could well become a situation where the National Committee would have to know that this year to know who's going to be voting at the National Committee meeting. The majority thinking was that the original purpose was to allow the past chair only for the term immediately following the term he served. The minority thinking will be explained by Ms. Key, but the reason for the majority thinking and what we think this proposal will do would be that the past chair would have to run again if a term has intervened. he would not be on forever. Our feeling was that if you did not change it that way, then if you had a chairman elected again and again for 10 years, say, the past chair would still be on for all that 10 years. That was one of our objections to it. We felt it was only intended for the immediate 2-year term afterwards. The other objection was you still have the problem of a chair who had been impeached perhaps years ago still sitting around, which isn't specifically addressed, but at least it will keep them only on until the next election. That was the majority thinking on that, and it was our feeling that this language here, the immediate past chair, for the 2-year period following the election of a new chair, would result in the immediate past chair not serving 2 terms in succession as immediate past chair, if you follow that. Now, Ms. Key was going to give the thinking on the minority report. Is she here? I can't even see up here. Okay, Jim will do it then.
Jim Clarkson, who's also on the Platform Constitution Committee, will speak on behalf of the minority report.
What we're talking about here is the nature of the position on the National Committee, the position being immediate past chair, and we're suggesting that position should be permanently on the National Committee. The reason being, in other organizations, this post is used by the chair to carry out certain functions where you need someone with the stature of elder statesman. For instance, he might be assigned to work with the state campaigns, or he might be assigned to do lobbying work, or he might be assigned to keep up with the national office. I mention those examples because other organizations use their past chair to do things like that. Now, at this time, the Libertarian Party does not have some specific function that the past chair is assigned to, and if he never will. He never will become very valuable if you have times when the position is vacant. If you have a position that's sometimes open and sometimes vacant, then it'll never evolve into some sort of place where you would use your elder statesman. So we urge that the position be filled at all times, so that the chairman will have someone at his disposal that he can assign to certain duties where an elder statesman, I'm using that, in quotes, elder statesman type person can be of value. And that's why we're urging words different from the majority position, so that it will not be vacant sometimes and occupied sometimes.
Well, what we are considering is the majority report amendment, proposed amendment, which has priority consideration.
It doesn't matter which way we vote, we need to vote, that's all. No, it isn't.
All right, we'll move to consideration of this proposal for...
Point of information.
I may answer your question right now.
I would like to know...
Excuse me. Let me just give these instructions, or this information, which may be an answer to your question. The way this will be considered, since there is a minority position on this from the platform, or excuse me, the Constitution, Bylaws, and Rules Committee, is that we'll take under consideration first the majority report's amendment. If that is defeated, then the minority report's proposed amendment would, is that right? Would be considered. I'm being corrected here.
Mr. Chair.
First. And so we'll move to that vote immediately. Just a minute.
If you're going to make that a ruling, I'd like to see that
Let's just, I'm going to take a straw vote on this without a formal vote, just to see how we feel on it. Do you want to take up the minority report's position first, which is considered an amendment to an amendment, which would be simply to change immediate past chair to most recent past chair? All in favor of that?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I think that it isn't a question of which are we going to consider first. The procedure we've always followed is to decide which are we going to consider, the majority or the minority report. And we, the body, vote, do we want to consider the majority report, or if more than half the people here want to consider the minority report instead, then we do that.
All right.
It's a choice between the two. Then if the one we consider first is defeated, we can go back and look at the other one.
Okay, let me get my thoughts together.
That's a good idea.
We have a dispute of historical fact. The chairman of the Constitution, Bylaws, and Rules Committee tells me that things aren't quite that way. I'm going to let him speak to this, and if I hear no substantial objection, which I will probably determine by straw vote, I think we will continue to follow the procedure that has been followed in the past. Mr. Howell has been the chairman of the Constitution, Bylaws, and Rules Committee the last couple of conventions, so I'm going to rely upon his statement of that history. Mr. Howell?
Okay, Dave, speaking specifically to what you said, I think I see where you've confused there. Under the platform, it does consider what you're talking about there. After 5 minutes, there will be a vote on which of the two reports will be considered for purposes of adopting a recommendation. We've been doing that with platform, at least since that rule was adopted. I'm not sure how long that's been.
My error.
My objection is that is not how we've been doing it on the Rules Committee. We have been doing it the same traditional way it's always done in other organizations with the Rules Committee, that the minority report has priority of consideration as an amendment to the majority report. In this case, it's an amendment by complete substitution to the majority report. The only advantage they have of making it a minority report is that by doing that, they automatically get the right to speak on it and propose that as the amendment first. So the first thing, this is just the same in effect as if they had moved an amendment from the floor to the majority report. So first we vote on their amendment, and then if it passes, then we can debate on the amended thing. If it fails, then somebody could propose other amendments if they wished. That is historically the way we've always done Constitution, Bylaws, and Rules.
I don't know if I'm ever going to get a chance to.
That's right.
I have the ruling I'm going to make, I will keep you in suspense about for a minute. The two proposals, the majority and the minority report, result in exactly opposite, or give exactly opposite results. The majority report has the result of saying, or of affecting this, that the immediate past chair will be on the National Committee for only one term and no longer. The minority report results in the following. The immediate past chair will be on the National Committee so long as his successor holds the office of chair, which could be for a number of terms. Since those two things are exactly or diametrically opposed results, I do not think it's appropriate to consider the minority report as an amendment. It's an alternative proposal. So for this purpose, what I will do is ask for a show of hands or a standing straw vote of which one do you want to consider first. And so we'll start with the majority report's proposal, which would state that the immediate past chair will only hold the position on the committee for 2 years. So all in favor of considering that amendment first in order, please rise. The majority report. If you want to consider the majority report first, please rise. That looks pretty good. Okay, sit down, and the ones that want to consider the minority report, please rise. My ruling is that the majority report will be considered first. All right. I've already ruled that it can't be an amendment because it has exactly the opposite. No, it doesn't. All right. The matter is open for debate on the question of whether or not we're going to adopt an amendment. Point of order. Yes. I
thought Bill Howell just explained what the rules are. I don't understand why we're taking additional straw votes and procedural votes on the order. Why don't we just go ahead with the minority report?
Well, I think the reasons for doing what we did should be evident because based on what you've all observed, the process that we had to follow in order to get where we are.
Point of information?
Where are you? I can't tell.
Point of information?
Yes.
If those people who don't like the minority report, why don't they just simply vote against it, vote it down, after which the majority report will be considered? I don't understand the point of all this procedural haggling about which gets voted on first. Why not simply vote down what you don't like and vote in favor of what you do like?
You're out of order. That was an argument based upon our prior decision. What we have before us at the present time is the majority report's proposal to amend Article 5, Section 1A with the results that the immediate past chair would mean for the 2-year period following the election of the new chair. All right. Anybody want to speak to the substance of that motion? Mr. Nolan.
Yes, I'd like to speak in favor of the majority report. In the first place, we've got to go one way or the other and clarify it because it's ambiguous, and obviously, as was pointed out, the two have diametrically opposite effects. It's my feeling that the majority report position is the correct one for 2 reasons. One, I don't think anybody, no matter how wonderful they are, how much they've done for the party, deserves an in perpetua or potentially in perpetua seat on the NatCom. After the first 2 years, I believe they should be accountable. If they've done a good job and people want them to have that seat again and again, fine, they can be reelected, but I don't see having that seat automatically. The other side of the same coin is that by implicitly tying the two together, you might at some future time have a situation where you had a chair running for re-election, but people might feel that they had to vote against that chair because they wanted to get rid of the immediate past chair, and the two were tied together. I think as libertarians we should make the two things separate and distinct. So I favor the majority position.
See why that guy was the founder of the party. I want to recognize someone who will speak in opposition to the amendment. Mr. Souter?
One of the problems traditionally with the National Committee is it's been in a state of flux. We constantly have changing regions, we have changing numbers of people on the committee and the like more. And as we're growing into maturity, we probably ought to have a little bit of, we know what's going to happen. And I think one of the first steps is to have a constant number of people on the National Committee. And by having a constant number of people, promote a certain level of stability. Therefore, I am against the adoption of the majority report and urge you all to vote against it. Let's maintain some level of constancy.
Somebody speak in favor of the amendment? Mr. You, sir.
Edward Carlson from Arizona. I'd like to speak in favor of the majority proposal. I believe the original in thinking in making this a continued post automatic status on the National Committee was to facilitate the transition from one chairman to the next. That can be accomplished in 2 years.
Anybody care to speak against the adoption of this?
Point of information?
Go ahead.
I have a question about the interpretation of the word election. And what I'd like to get clarified is, am I correct in assuming that election means election by the convention and not appointment by National Committee to fill an unexpired term?
The word was election. We selected the word election, meaning either election by the convention or election by the National Committee in case of a vacancy, which is why we put in 2 years instead of term of office, so that if, say, Dave Berglund drops dead in the middle of his next term and they elect a successor, then... You're right, excuse me. If Dave Berglund resigns in the middle of his next term and they elect a successor at that point, then Dave Berglund would be the past chair for the next 2 years, or at least until the next convention if they elected another person at that point. It was intended to cover both.
In that case, I'd like to move to insert election at convention.
Is there a second? Okay. The motion...
Be after the word election, I'd like to insert the two words at convention.
All right? That would mean that Article 5, subsection B would be for the two-year period following the election at a convention of a new chair. Oh, did you say by convention or at a convention?
At the convention.
At a convention, all right.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any discussion? Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I have in mind just what was brought up at the beginning of this discussion about the question about impeachment. And what I had in mind was that someone who were impeached, if someone were impeached for the office of chair, he would, by adding this amendment, not be qualified to serve then as the immediate past chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion on this motion? Mr. Kenny?
Mr. Chairman, I move the question.
Question has been called. All in favor of suspending debate, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move to a vote on the amendment to the committee majority report, proposed amendment, which would insert the words at a convention after the word election. So it would read the immediate past chair for the two-year period following the election at a convention of a new chair. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Ayes have it. Now, we will move to a consideration of the main motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the previous question. Ben Olson from Iowa.
It's been moved to suspend debate. Further debate on this. All in favor of closing debate, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. All right. Motion before the floor is to adopt the proposal to amend Article 5, Section 1A to delete the words in the immediate past chair from subsection A, insert a new section B, B to read the immediate past chair for the two-year period following the election of a new chair. Excuse me, election at a convention of a new chair. No further inquiries for interpretation heard. We will move to a vote. All in favor of adopting that, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Division. Let's see a standing division. This requires two-thirds vote. All in favor of adopting this stand, please. It's like two-thirds to me. Okay, sit down. All opposed to adopting this amendment? I rule that's two-thirds. Where are you? Move to a microphone, please. State your name.
Name is Ed Wolford. We need a doctor outside here, please. If there is a doctor in the house. Thank you.
I don't think we need a ruling as to whether or not that's personal privilege. Okay, do we consider the minority report? Yeah. Just a continuing explanation. Since we have adopted the majority report and the majority and minority reports on this issue were exact opposites, I'll rule that we will not consider the minority report proposal. All right.
Okay. The next proposal, well, the next one I have here is a note for a minority report for which there is no majority report. That is to say, if I can explain that situation to the chair so that he can rule on what we do here, this is something on which the majority of the committee voted to take no action, and we have a minority report which is to take some action to make some change, add something, delete something, whatever it is. What would the chair suggest we do on this?
Yes, There is no specific rule on this. However, by analogy, or no specific rule in our rules. Well, it is a change of consent. What we could do is, and I think this, I will suggest this, and if there's no violent objections, we will do it, is that since this only comes out as a minority report proposal, that we will put it at the end of the other matters which the Constitution and Bylaws Committee is reporting, and take it up at that point, rather than taking it up at this point. Okay, you love me.
Okay, the reason I brought it up at that point, someone asked, was because I had notes here what article they would come up in and order in the Constitution. Okay, moving on here. The next one is on the page. It's, did I hear somebody say question? No, okay. Article 5, Section 1C of the Constitution. This is the same thing we're still dealing with. This is on the regional divisions. After the aforementioned regional division shall be, substitute for the remainder of the subsection the following wording. Now, all this will affect is where the regional divisions are. It does not affect all of the previous stuff up there in the first paragraph under C. All that it does is change the lines, and it expands the number of the regions. I can go into what the practical effects will be of it later, but it doesn't change the way we elect regional representatives or anything else, just the regional lines. This is our biennial revision of regional lines. This year's proposal, which may be amended from the floor state by state if you want to, I'll read it all. Region 1, Alaska. Region 2, California. Region 3, Washington, Oregon, Hawaii, and U.S. territories and possessions in the Pacific Ocean, effectively Guam. Region 4, Arizona. Region 5, Nevada. Region 6, Utah, Idaho, and Montana. Region 7, Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming. Region 8, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota. Region 9, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. Region 10, Texas. Region 11, Illinois and Wisconsin. Region 12, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. Region 13, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama. Region 14, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and U.S. territories and possessions in the Caribbean region, which as of yet are none. Region 15, West Virginia, Maryland, District of Columbia, and Virginia. Region 16, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. Region 17, New York. Region 18, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. In other words, New England. Now I can give some of the committee's thinking on why we did the regions this way. First, the committee wanted to expand, or rather first consideration they had was they wanted to reduce the size of regions so that regions would be able to work together better, so that regional reps in working with those states would be able to get around to them easier, so that you could have regional conferences without driving everybody broke, etc., etc. Another thing we wanted to do was to break it down so that you would not have, except in one case according to this proposal, more than one regional representative from a region. Without changing the allocation figures, This effectively changes it so that no region except for California would have more than 10% of the membership. Therefore, California would be the only region with more than one member as a regional rep. All of the others fall below 10% on this. At least one of them falls so closely below that it might be pushed up if we didn't change the regions next time, but it's a single state region, specifically Alaska. At this point, it would result with 18 regions with 19 members on the National Committee as regional reps therefrom. This results, assuming we don't change the numbers of at-large committee members or officers, in a net expansion of the National Committee to 30 people from its present 27, which we did not consider great enough to warrant exclusion on that grounds. I can speak to the specific things here. Generally, we tried to keep as much as possible party membership within the various regions on a more or less equal basis. They are not. They vary by as much as 1.75%. I think in one case there's a variance of 2% between the extremes. All of that discounting, of course, California and Alaska, which are well over 2 and 3 times the average region for the rest of the country, but there's nothing you can do about it without dividing California and Alaska. Some of us from the lower 48 like the idea of dividing Alaska. The population in most of these regions is fairly equally divided. All of these regions have around 4 to 5% of the national membership, except the single state regions. There are 6 single state regions on here: California, Alaska, Arizona. All have vastly disproportionate members. They have much more than 4 to 5%. The other 3 single state regions, New York, Texas, and Nevada, are more right in the population figure for the average region. We felt that these 6 states are definitely large enough to deserve their own regions. None of the others are as yet. There are some which are somewhat closer. Iowa comes next and then Illinois. But there was a sizable drop-off from Nevada, which was 6th, down to Iowa. So we felt at this time we could just go with this. The committee's thinking was that when a state has progressed to such an enormous size as to hold 19% of the national membership, or even 5%, it therefore deserves to be its own region. We're also looking somewhat down the road. Eventually, I predict this with no fear of contradiction by reality, we will have every state represented on the National Committee. That will be years away. How many years depends on how we grow. At some point we will have to do that, just as the other parties do. The Democratic National Committee has something like 200 members, for instance, with 3 from each state or something. Whatever size we get to, 1, 2, or 3 from each state, you'll have to have a smaller executive committee, probably the size of the current National Committee, running party affairs on a more regular basis. But we thought it would be a step backwards to go to other proposals such as the ones which we're keeping now, considering the growth of these individual states, or to proposals such as trying to pair large states with small states. As far as specific lines on here, I can speak to any question on specific lines on here. It is my position, I might add, that any state which doesn't like the region we put them in, and we scouted around and asked many people as we could in the various states, A, can you get along in this region? Can you all work together? B, is there somebody there, good, bad, or intolerable, who would be willing to be a regional rep? And we think that that is the case. In most cases, there are several people interested in being regional reps, and already at least 2 people here at the convention have spoken to me, having seen the new regions, and said, well, since it's so much smaller, I can afford to go around in that region, which is one of our criteria for setting them up this way.
Mr. Chairman?
Now, I understand that there are going to be at least 2 proposals from the floor. One state, 2 specific states don't like the individual region they are in, and they're going to move an amendment to this to change it. I would like to comment that, as far as I'm concerned, any individual state which wants to change themselves from one region to another, I take the libertarian internal structural approach that that's great by me. But I would object vehemently, though of course I'm just one more voice, to any state getting up and saying, I don't like what X and Y are doing way over there, let's move them around. Let's ask X and Y what they want about it.
Mr. Chairman?
Is my position on that. I would hope the convention delegates will go along with that. Let us not try and impose something on regions. If somebody doesn't like these regions, get up and propose changing your state. Leave the other states alone unless they want to change it. Okay, I can answer any questions before I guess we throw it open for wide debate about why we drew the line specifically this way, if there are any such. Is that a question? I can barely see.
You could call it a question, yes. Is it not the case that if we
I
adopt...
can't understand you.
Is this microphone not working?
No, I just didn't understand what you said.
It seems to me that if we have half a dozen one-state regions, we need to strike the words which at present appear in regions with 2 or more committee members, at least 2 states shall be represented, with the exception of Region 2. That sentence surely is now obsolete and should be stricken.
Yes, sir. The chair would entertain a friendly amendment to that. The honest fact is, I know...
move.
Okay, you don't need to move it if it's friendly. Does any member of the committee object to that? Okay, that's a friendly amendment. The reason it's typed up without that is because I didn't notice we had failed to look at that sentence till I typed it up, and I wasn't going to change it after the committee had already voted it this way. I thank you for that friendly amendment. That is accepted. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Is it a question? I think he wants to make a motion.
Is it?
It's no question. I have a motion.
Is this a question?
Motion.
Okay. Question? All right. I want to recognize first some people who've been standing at the microphone some time. Mr. Franklin?
I'd like to speak in favor of the motion when it's appropriate to do that.
It is now appropriate to do that.
In that case, the state of North Carolina is delighted to be reunited with its sister state of South Carolina, with whom we had a joint regional convention, joint state convention this summer, even though we were from different regions. We are also very glad to see the increased number of regions, which serves to reduce the power of the at-large members.
Is that a motion, Mr. Franklin?
No, I'm speaking in favor of the proposal, sir.
Okay.
And brings the National Committee closer to the membership by dispersing it geographically.
Now, did you have a motion, ma'am?
Yes, I do. Sylvia Mooring from Arkansas. I'd like to make a motion to change from Region 13 to Region 9 on the proposal.
You want to change Arkansas from Region 13 to Region 9?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Howell suggests that we might be able to do that by consent of the committee.
Yeah. Does anybody on the committee object to moving Arkansas to what's that with Oklahoma? Okay, is there any objection from a committee member? Hearing none, then we accept that as a friendly amendment.
Point of information.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Souter?
I'd like a ruling from the chair whether we are now addressing the entire motion and require a division of the question to change regions. Whether we want to divide, we'll first discuss whether we want to have any change at all in the regional setup, and first debate that question, and then divide the question into changing any particular regions that people may find objectionable.
See if
because these are all really friendly amendments, apparently, that we're
I
hearing
think
now.
at this point, your question may be premature. At this point, we are considering only the main motion with 2 friendly amendments. So we don't have an amendment on the floor. I think it's premature to request a ruling such as you're requesting at this point, because if the body simply goes ahead and approves this, then we won't have that problem.
Mr. Chairman?
What, Mr. Kenny?
Kenny from Washington. I move that we change Region 3 to split it into 2 regions, Washington and Oregon being in one region, Hawaii and the U.S. territories and possessions in the Pacific Ocean being in the other region. This motion is...
Is there a second?
This motion is the wish of the delegations of Hawaii, Oregon, and Washington. I realize that this would increase the number on the National Committee by 1, but I urge it.
Let's consider whether or not the committee wants to take that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, is there any objection from any member of the committee to that procedure? There is an objection. It won't be friendly. I'm sorry, Rich.
Then may I speak to the motion?
Was there an objection?
Yeah, Jim Carter.
Okay. Yeah, there was an objection, so go ahead and speak to the motion.
Okay,
Mr.
I'll make it short and sweet. Logistical considerations alone demand that this be a two-region grouping. Washington and Oregon can work together very, very effectively, and I would think that the islands in the Pacific group, including the state of Hawaii, could work together effectively. If you try to link those two up, whether you try to link them up with California or Alaska, you're going to create logistical difficulties. One of the main purposes of this entire change is to make those difficulties less. And as I see it, my motion is a very effective means of doing that, and one more addition to the National Committee is not going to affect things one way or the other.
Mr. Clarkson, in opposition to the motion.
Clarkson from Georgia. The Pacific Islands have a very small membership. It's just not fair to give them a whole region like California, for instance. And if we keep doing this, increasing them, such as you see the southern states have the Caribbean islands also lumped in with them, this is just a bad way to go. Sure, they're a long way off, but there's no other region that they can logically be placed in. So I suggest we reject this proposed amendment.
Anybody want to speak in favor of the motion? Mr. Russell?
Mike Russell, Hawaii. I'd like to speak in favor of the motion. Though we may be, in terms of national membership, one of the smaller areas, I'd like to point out that the state of Hawaii was one of only 6 states to remain on the ballot by way of their performance in the recent elections, and that we... Thank you. There are numerous other notable things about Hawaii, including its attraction for people to travel out there who happen to be able to afford it. You're all certainly welcome to come out and visit us, but I agree that it would be a hardship for a delegate, or rather an ATCOM member who was based in the mainland to travel to Hawaii the number of times that we'd like to see him out there. So we would oppose that, or rather support the amendment. Thank you.
Anyone to speak against the motion? Mr. Olson?
Yes, Hawaii has 0.9% of the members of the National Party. Iowa has 3.35%. If Hawaii wants its own regional rep, I think I would suggest that there are many other states who would deserve equally and even more so their own regional rep. And I think this is perpetuating a gross injustice if we would try to do it this way. Also, the point is, it seems to be that Hawaii is split off, and therefore it causes a problem for regions to be coordinated. Well, if it's such a problem that way, isn't it also a problem for the regional rep in Hawaii to travel back to national committee meetings in the states?
All right, yes, sir.
I move the call of the question.
All right. Is there a second? All in favor of suspending debate on this amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, the amendment is, and we will assume renumbering of the successive regions as a technicality, would be to split Region 3 into 2 regions comprised of one, Washington and Oregon, and the other, Hawaii and the U.S. territories and possessions of the Pacific Ocean. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Nays have it.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Souter.
With Mr. Howe's sentiments in mind, Illinois would like to submit what we hope will be a friendly amendment to move Illinois from Region 11 to Region 12.
Is there a second? There's a second. All right, the proposal is to move Illinois from Region 11 to Region 12, the result of which would be to leave Region 11 comprised of one state, Wisconsin, and Region 12 would then have Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. Okay, any debate? Mr. Suter, would you speak to your motion, please?
Okay, this is not going to be accepted by Mr. Howe and his committee as a friendly amendment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, yes, it is not a friendly amendment.
Was there an objection?
What?
Did you object?
I was just going to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He said yes.
Excuse me, he didn't have, I thought he had said he already had it. Is there an objection from any of the members of the...
Yes, I can see two already.
Okay, he's identified two objections. So go ahead and speak to the motion.
Okay. One of the ideas that the people in Illinois have is we have been very active over the years, as have the people in Wisconsin. And we note that on one of our very long and common borders, we have several parties who, despite their best efforts to the contrary, have met with something less than splendid success in organizing their respective states. And people in Illinois feel there would be of substantial benefit to us to have them in our region so that we could freely help these people as part of a regional effort which would increase our own vote totals, help to organize a party statewide in Indiana and Michigan, all of which would greatly benefit the Illinois party in our feeling. And that's why we're interested in associating particularly with the Indiana and Michigan parties.
Thank you. Yes.
I haven't heard a motion or a second yet on this floor.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
I did. Anybody want to? Did anybody want to speak against that motion? Yes.
Sally Mason, Colorado. I don't believe there's anything to prevent Illinois from helping anybody they want. I don't believe do not have to share a region, to be a good neighbor. And what this would do would leave Wisconsin all by itself, in which case we're going to have to go into a move to move Wisconsin someplace. And I just think this could go on forever.
Anyone? Does anybody care to speak in favor of the motion? Yes.
Elizabeth Krause from Indiana. I think that speaking for the Indiana delegation, that we were not satisfied with the regions as they were designed. I think that Illinois has been a great friend to us, and that we hope to be the same to them and would prefer to be in the same region as Illinois, and I support this amendment.
Anybody care to speak in opposition to the motion? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak in opposition to this quite
Please
simply.
state your name.
Fred Bross from Oklahoma.
Thank you.
And in our case, as we asked for Arkansas, we felt that Nebraska was somewhat of a burden in that there isn't any established party there. But we're more than willing to take that burden because we know in the United States, as our party, there's a lot of work to be done. And I think that continued fighting on these divisions is going to lead to a lot more later infighting that we're now seeing now. So I think everybody should look at what they've got. If we put Wisconsin alone, it's going to be out there. We're going to have to put it somewhere else, which means moving that one. If we move it somewhere else, chances are we're going to have to make a motion to move some other states somewhere else. I think what we've got is a pretty good plan. I think the committee spent a lot of time and hard work, and I think we ought to leave it alone where it's at.
The time for debate on this item presented by the platform or the Constitution, Bylaws, and Rules Committee is up. So we have before us two votes to take. One, which is on the motion before the floor to change Illinois from Region 11 to Region 12, and then we will go to a vote on the main motion. We'll take up the vote on the amendment first. All in favor of removing or moving Illinois from Region 11 to Region 12, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. You really made him mad. All right. We will now move to a vote on the main motion, which is to adopt the Constitution, Bylaws, and Rules Committee report setting forth the regions with the friendly amendments as previously stated. The first to delete the last sentence of subsection C of that article. Didn't we have another?
Point of order.
Where are you? Yes.
Kopi Blackwell from North Carolina. You did not rule on the last vote.
I beg your pardon?
I believe the chair did not rule on the last vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, right. That's correct. Yeah, we didn't go to a vote on the last item substantively. Did we? Okay. I don't think we only, didn't we just?
Did the last motion fail or did it pass?
All right, yes. The amendment did not carry. That is the amendment to move Regional 11, Illinois from Region 11 to Region 12. Thank you for pointing that out. On the adoption of the main motion with the friendly amendments which were suggested and adopted, which I'll let Mr. Howell explain since he's got them noted there.
Okay, the first one is delete the last sentence about in regions with two, et cetera, except for the exception to, which, as was pointed out, is redundant and unnecessary now. The second one was to split off Hawaii, Guam, and anybody else out there in the big blue into their own region from Washington and Oregon. So effectively that increases one more region. And the third one was to move Arkansas from the western southern region into the southern central Great Plains region with Oklahoma, et cetera.
Point of information.
Yes, sir.
I think the Hawaii amendment was defeated.
Excuse me.
Correct. I stand corrected.
All right. Let me just, I want to confer with the Secretary and make sure that we have this exactly in order before we go to a vote on it. That lost. So we don't have it. That was a friendly amendment. Arkansas was friendly. All right. I think we have it now. The motion, as amended, deletes the last sentence of subsection C, which relates to regions with two states having representatives not applicable with the remainder of the motion. The other friendly amendment was to move Arkansas from Region 13 to Region 9. And those are the two friendly amendments. So you would have those corrections. Okay, moving to a vote on the main motion. All in favor of the committee report as amended, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Waive your